Hey y'all, it's LSD O'Neill back with another video. Today I want to talk about potentially adding another Resident Evil chapter to Dead by Daylight. I know we probably don't need it, but I also kind of want to think about the fact that 7 and 8 have not been represented, and personally, 8 being one of my favorite games out of the franchise, probably like third favorite or something like that, honestly. It's really good, I love it a lot. Um, but anyway, I will have to preface the fact that I did not like 7. I did not play a lot of 7, so most of my opinions on characters from 7 is very limited, and so I'm probably going to be mostly focusing on 8 for this specific video. I will say I understand the idea of adding Jack Baker. He makes sense to me, but I don't know who else they could add that would make sense for 7. But I still want to represent 7 and 8, and we can at least do that through survivors. So the question is, who would I add from 8? There isn't a whole lot of options, honestly. Like, there's a few, like the four horsemen, whatever the fuck they were called in the game. It's been a minute. But honestly, I can only limit it down to maybe 2 for being full on killer DLC, and that would be Heisenberg and Dimitrescu. And the thing with Heisenberg, I think he would work really well, but he also feels like he could be a legendary skin for Deathslinger. I do believe he could have a unique power that does a lot of stuff that could like gravity, do stuff with gravity, do some weird shenanigans. But for now, I'm not going to talk about him. I kind of want to talk about Dimitrescu and with her daughters. I also want to make sure I explain why I don't think Mother Miranda would be a good killer either. I think she would function too much like Nemesis, getting more powerful as the thing goes on, because she's like the boss, and that's kind of how she functions in the game as well. And she's also, even though she is the final boss, she is very, in my opinion, not that interesting and did not really have that much of an impact on Resident Evil as a whole. I think out of all the characters in RE7 and 8, it's Jack Baker, Heisenberg, and Dimitrescu. Otherwise, I think all the other characters are kind of just there. They're fun, and I think those games are generally fun. And I know Seven's good; this is not my thing, but I just think that Dimitrescu is probably the highest chance, and they can do some interesting things with her. First, let's talk about the elephant in the room and the fact that she is fucking massive. She would be bigger than Nemesis. And I think one thing they could go behind with this is there's already an animation in RE8 of her ducking through doors, and they could easily do something like that for her. Obviously, I think the only problem would be any kind of room that might be too short. I don't think there's a lot, but they could always just have her have like a arch back in those moments. I know it'd be a lot to code and it would be kind of difficult to deal with, but I think it'd be a really nice aesthetic overall. So with Dimitrescu, I think she would still be a basic M1 killer in certain aspects. She would be able to do M1 stuff. I am struggling to decide on what to do with the daughters. I have two ideas. Either one where she can throw out like decently sized zones, and I mean like way bigger than even night, like just a zone that if survivors stay in it too long, that the sisters will slowly hinder them, as in their bug form, and then potentially pin them down. Or I kind of like the other option of say a generator hits 50%, a zone drops, and if they don't leave that zone, they get the hinder, and then they get pinned down by the daughters. And if they don't get helped by a teammate in a certain amount of time, they can take a health state. I think it'd be an interesting way of slowdown that maybe might be strong. I don't know, but it implements the daughters, which are very important to Dimitrescu. Like she cares a lot about them in the lore, and it'd be a fun way to still give that vibe of having mobs that exist in Resident Evil interacting with the game in some way, and all the RE characters have some kind of slowdown built into the kit. And I think that'd be a good way to introduce some kind of way. It could be tweaked, it could be fixed in some way, but I think having the daughters interact by being like their bug forms and slowly swarming more and more until they get caught, I think that'd be an interesting way to do that. While Dimitrescu is still a 4.6 meter killer who has to get to A and B and C, wada wada. Okay, so with their activating it, I think it would kind of work like a indirect artist kind of way, right? So say here this is Shack, whatever, cool. Um, door, window, door, whatever. Say that's Shack. We got a gen in here. We probably got like TL or something over here. Gen, whatever. Basically, so she's right here. I kind of want to see a big ring come out, which she goes to activate her power. Kind of like Nurse's thing where you can see it through walls, or maybe even Pinhead, and then she can throw it out straight in front of her. And the longer she holds it, the further it goes. And I think it has some kind of range. I think it can have a pretty long range though. So say there's a survivor here, and then they can bring it out and put it over them. And the survivor, maybe they're healing or maybe they're doing a totem or something. And slowly, as time goes by, I don't know exact numbers. I'm not any kind of game dev. This is just an idea. Bugs slowly start to swarm them. And eventually, they get locked by one of the daughters coming in and just holding him still. And if no other survivor comes up, they will take a health state in, I don't know, like 20 seconds or something. So it makes people who go by themselves have to leave the zone. So it's slowdown indirectly, which I think is not bad. It's pestering. Dimitrescu still has a long way to get all the way over here. She would have to deal with any harassment, running into any other survivors along the way, yada yada. I think this is an interesting way to make a new power that hasn't been exactly done. Yeah, it feels a little bit like Artist, of course. It's got like kind of like the chains as well, where it slows them down. It doesn't injure them over a while. I think it'd be fair to have a daughter injure after a certain amount of time. And again, they get the hinder, so if they don't get out fast enough, they would get slowed down. And if they're, say, get to the ring and they get out, the bugs dissipate. They could even add items. I don't know how it'd feel about them putting items. I know every RE character has them, but they could put like a counter item that's like a frost grenade or something, kind of like how they counter them in game. It's like for cold air. They could do that. And then, or it could even be like, say, light sensitive. I know they don't like light sensitivity, but they could do like flashbangs. Flashbangs can stun them for a second and stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe flashlights interact with them like with zombies. I think that'd be a fun, interesting thing to do. I know they don't really like having that kind of interactivity anymore, but I think it'd be kind of fun, honestly. I definitely don't think she needs any kind of teleport. I'm sure she could technically get away with having one, because she kind of appears in different parts of the castle very quickly, unforeseen and stuff. But I just don't think she needs a teleport, and we don't need another teleport killer. We have so many. Mobility is very strong. I think having disruption from across the map is something that could be interesting to the game. We have a little bit of that with like Artist. I know some people don't like Artist, but it's not necessarily anti-loop with her specifically in the wit, depending on how they end up building her, if they do build her, you know? Now, I think that she should definitely be the normal speed, 4.6, and still, like, very function like a normal M1 killer. She doesn't need a dash or a teleport, like I said earlier. I think she would just be good as an M1 killer. Maybe because of her size, they could do something silly, like make her break objects just ever so slightly faster, basically have a base kit, brutal strength or something. But anyway, I don't think she needs anything too crazy. I think she would function pretty well with some kind of passive, well, somewhat passive slowdown in the distance that she can either go interact with or leave alone. Just to be, it is definitely annoying, but I think it'd be a good macro ability. I like macro builds, and so of course I'm going to be building her like a macro build. Now for survivors, and I know a lot of people are going to quickly say that Ethan should not be one of them. The thing is, Ethan has seen a face. We do know what he actually looks like. Just because he wasn't seen for most of the 2 games, you do see him at the very end, and it's spoilery and all this stuff, so I'm not going to go into details. But obviously, if not Ethan, we should get Mia, and even maybe the daughter who gets older. I forgot her name. I think it's Rose. Rose. How did I forget her name? Oh my gosh, I'm a silly. But I think those would be pretty good survivor choices. We can also dive into more of the mythos. Get Ashley from RE4 and as like a legendary cosmetic, and some other Stars members maybe, or even side characters like Barry from Code Veronica. We could get a castle map. I think that'd be really cool. That's what we really wanted with Borgo, and then we got fucking Borgo. I just don't know how they would design such a thing. I think another indoor map is always fine. I like indoor maps. But I do know a lot of the community is not a fan. But a castle map would be really, really cool, and it would really fit her vibes. She could have, it could be a double layer map, and then the top of the map, it could be outside and snowy and whatever. And then on the second floor, it can be, you know, like one of the upper walkways and all this stuff. It could be very truthful to the map from the game as well. I know we don't need another map. We have a lot at this point. But if we did, it'd be cool. I would be okay with it. Now, what would be like the perks that would come with Dimitrescu? And I think that would be a little difficult. I don't have any names or anything drawn out. So these are going to be from like the top of my head. They weren't originally in like my thoughts of how the chapter should be or anything like that. And even though they are a very important part of like chapters, I think she should have something that is definitely vengeful, because she gets very angry when her daughters die. She starts to pursue you kind of like how Mr. X does. So probably something that would make her stronger as the match goes on, kind of like how Fire Up works. I don't exactly know how that could work exactly, but I think it'd be a fun way to do things because we already have batteries included. We have Fire Up, but something else that maybe makes her stronger. Obviously, we also have like Rancor, which exposes. I just think something. I don't want to give haste, and I don't want to give like breaking or vaulting because we already have so much of that. Maybe like it could be broken. I don't know how it works, but maybe cooldown reduction on abilities. I know they don't really like doing that, but that'd be kind of a cool, unique thing that they could do. Or it could also do something like, say, when they're in your terror radius, maybe give a small hinder effect or something tiny, something that shouldn't break the game. But I don't know. It's really hard to choose perks when there's so many, especially for killer, and that would be kind of thematic for killers as well. Also, there could also be some kind of vampiric ability. She technically isn't a vampire by lore standards, but she functions very much like it. She likes blood. So I feel like a blood-themed vampire trait would be pretty good. Say, what if whenever she gets a hit, she... Fuck. It could be a token system for sure. I think that would work really well. Every time you get a hit and, like, making a survivor drop blood, you get a token. And after X tokens, more things become available to you. Maybe you get faster vaults. Maybe you get stuff like that. That would be kind of cool. A cool, unique way. Another Fire Up. But you don't necessarily need to be losing the game to get value out of it. It would definitely be a win more perk. But I think that's okay to have win more perks every once in a while. Okay, last one. This took me a second. But what if we had a Hex? We haven't had a Hex in a while. What if we had a Hex that for every survivor that is injured, each survivor gets hindered by a certain amount. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy until like maybe all 4 people are injured. It's kind of like Thano, but it's a hex because it's going to be stronger and it can be destroyed. And I think it kind of instills fear into the survivors, kind of like how Lady D is supposed to do in the game. I'm desensitized to it. But I think that would be kind of interesting. I don't know what they would call it. I don't know the names for any of these. These are obviously off the top of my head ideas. They could be hog shit, unusable, or they could be overpowered. I am not a game developer. I have no idea what I'm doing. These are just ideas of what they could do to add Lady Dimitrescu to Dead by Daylight. If you have any ideas or discussions on it, go ahead and leave a comment, and we'll talk about it down there. Thank you guys. Bye.